Tudo tem um outro lado. Frente, trás, direita, esquerda, cima, baixo. Fora, dentro, com, sem, côncavo, convexo. Para poder entender o mundo por completo, é preciso se colocar do outro lado. Olhar para o outro lado. Sentir o outro lado. Viver o outro lado. Com a criatividade é a mesma coisa. Para entender a criatividade, é preciso viver o outro lado. O lado do estudo, da pesquisa, da experimentação. Tentativa e erro. Deslizes e conquistas. Obstáculos e linhas de chegada. Tem gente que fala que não é o destino que mais importa, e sim a jornada. Mas quase nunca vemos claramente qual é a jornada do ser criativo. É hora de assumir o lugar por trás das câmeras, dentro dos bastidores, na mesa de controle, atrás do computador, onde você está lendo isso. Redhook Ideas. Creativity behind creativity.
My team and I always had trouble figuring out how to grow our digital market share, until we found SimilarWeb. With SimilarWeb, you can quickly see who's winning in your industry, uncover your competitors' digital strategies, and understand how to better reach your target audience. We now have an incredible bird's eye view of our market to see exactly who's driving growth. Now that's a competitive edge. We can instantly identify any potential threats and get ahead before it's too late. Plus, we can see where else our audience spends time online, what they're interested in, and where to engage with our customers. SimilarWeb has completely transformed the way we build and monitor our digital strategy. Honestly, I don't know what we'd do without it. Optimize your digital strategy. Win with SimilarWeb.
Hi. Hello. Something's wrong here. Sorry, Grazie. Somebody has, we have a lot of computers on here, so I'll ask you to introduce Toby and Natalia, because I won't be able to. We are online already. Grazie.
I'm muted. I know, I just noticed.
Sorry. Now I'm okay.
Yeah, somebody muted it. So is Natalia and Toby coming to the stage as well right now?
Oh yeah, I'd like you to introduce them. So one, and then the next one.
Okay, gotcha. So first of all, let me introduce myself, if that's okay. My name is Grazie Prokopetz. I am the creative lead at the Cultural Council for Palm Beach County here in Palm Beach County, Florida. I'm also the vice president for the local chapter of the American Advertising Federation. And now I'm going to introduce Toby Dobrik. He's the president of the local club for the American Advertising Federation, Palm Beach and Broward counties. And he is also a digital strategist at Starmark Agency. Toby, take it. Just give us a line about your.
You covered it. Yeah. Current president of the local chapter of American Advertising Federation. Local being Palm Beach, which is where Grazie's from, and Broward County, which is the Fort Lauderdale area, which is where I live. And yeah, digital marketing analyst at Starmark, doing everything data and analytics and all that fun nerdy stuff. That's what I get to do. But that's it. You covered it.
Yeah. And next we have Natalia. Natalia Speaker is she has a background in recruiting, and she has her own firm now, and she is just a powerhouse of a woman and recruiter. Natalia Speaker, please come on. Natalia. I think Celine is trying to bring her on. So give him a second.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for the introduction, Grazie, Toby. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys. I've known these amazing humans for a long time, and you guys are in for a treat today. My name is Natalia Speaker, and as Grazie mentioned, I come from the wonderful world of staffing and recruiting, and I was at Robert Half, one of the world's largest staffing agencies, for almost 7 years, where I developed creative teams for companies like Norwegian Cruise Line, Royal Caribbean, some of the best ad agencies in Florida. And then throughout the pandemic, I transitioned into a company called SheWorks, where I wish I would have started it. But as Grazie pointed out, it is a firm that was started by one of my good friends, Silvina Moschini, who is a powerhouse serial entrepreneur. And I want to mention her because she's created a wonderful ecosystem called SheWorks now that's focused on leveraging technology and the power of remote work to not only empower women, but also help underrepresented groups across the world get connected to opportunities in Canada, the United States, and Mexico, aka North America. So we're really not just bridging the unemployment gap, we're bridging the gender gap, we're bridging the digital skills gap. And I get to be a part of this wonderful initiative as their president because of my background in staffing. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys today to share what's happening in the world right now with trends, especially in the US, which is a target market for myself, what's going on with advertising agencies, the communication space, how to prepare for the future of work. So I have become an evangelist of the future of work in the last 2 years because I have personally lived the changes of the pandemic. I've seen the lows, I've seen the highs, and I'm here to tell you that it's awesome news for you guys that there are amazing opportunities out there. So we're here to teach you how to get prepared for those.
Yes. Thanks for correcting me. I was,
It's okay. I want to make sure she gets credit for this. This is her baby.
Yeah,
I'm along for the ride.
For sure. So my first question, I have questions, and again, I wanted just to mention that Natalia, before she got in all those years of recruiting, she was also a creative. She was a designer and art director. So yes, you guys you're in for a treat. My question is, so with the pandemic, everyone working remotely, we realized that we don't need the walls anymore, the desks and the chairs inside an office so much. You don't need to be together physically as much. So that prompted a lot of hiring overseas and crossing borders in this acquisition and hiring new creatives. So you guys understand that, and that happened. And also we had a series of the creative hackathon here that we had companies here, businesses here that we helped with, mostly volunteers from Brazil and other parts of the world. So with that, I mean, we saw how that worked and how well that flowed. So we see that happening. I want to take, first of all, your take, Natalia, on this shift, and then if you have any data, I mean, as far as employments, like ups and downs, what happened when the pandemic started, there was like some massive fire, and did it go down and up and back again? Like, what is the trend there, as far as hiring outside of the country and so forth?
Thank you, Grazie. That's a great point to raise. And I think that the one thing I'll say that I observed from the pandemic, especially coming from a very traditionally staffed and structured company like Robert Half that said, we'll never be fully remote. Well, the pandemic hit. And I think the pandemic made us, not just us at Robert Half, but the whole world, realize that you can work from home and be productive. And I think that's where the whole mindset started to shift. And I think that people started realizing, and not just people, but companies started realizing that the ones that would embrace this shift, see the opportunity, consider it the perfect storm for transforming a business, hiring mechanisms, how you structure talent within your organizations, were the companies and groups that actually thrived within this perfect storm and actually were able to reinvent themselves. And I think that just this whole mindset shift started just diffusing itself into every area that you can think of: companies, people, the way that we interact with people. So I think that people that were able to see beyond the limitations were the ones that grew. That being said, it started to, as you mentioned, trickle into how people like creatives, especially creatives from around the world, are now brought into very pressing needs and demands. And as most of you that are in staffing or even hiring right now have noticed, that the talent market in the United States is like I've never seen it before. And I've been doing staffing for the better part of 8 years now. And I think the biggest shift that we saw is that it really removed a lot of boundaries. And the boundaries that I'm talking about specifically are the boundaries of connecting with people from around the world. So first we realized we can work from home. We can actually be more productive. 80% of CFOs are like, actually, I really love this model. Companies like Twitter and Deloitte are going fully remote, and people are following suit. And the ones who don't are then seeing this whole thing called the Great Resignation. So that's just it in a mouthful. That's what I observed. That's how slowly the talent markets and the world is transforming into becoming open, inclusive, and it's almost setting the precedent for companies to do the same. And the ones who open their eyes and embrace these shifts are the ones that are attracting the best talent, not just from the United States, from all over the world, and consequently retaining that talent. So these shifts have, in my opinion and in my eyes, have presented so many opportunities for evolution, for change, for cultural and business transformation. And I'll use SheWorks as an example. SheWorks was already operating fully remote 7 years ago. So way before it was cool, way before it was, a necessity to work from home, we had already figured it out. And what we're noticing is that some companies love the idea, like the Twitters and Deloitte of the world. And then other companies are like, oh, we're not ready for that yet. We want to stay within a hybrid model. So you guys have probably made decisions on your own that we're going to remain hybrid 2 weeks out, 3 weeks in, whatever 2 days out, 3 days in, whatever works for your culture. But it's cool just to see how people that thought that it could never be done are now the biggest believers in these shifts. And I think that at the end of the day, from a recruiter's perspective and a talent perspective, it's the change that we needed. I think that people are now more inclusive. They're more open to diversity. I've seen an increase in not yet the full solution of gender parity, but a huge push for that. And I do know that some events impacted that, but mentally wise, I think people are just finally seeing the light. So I'm really excited to be in this world at this time. But these shifts have, ultimately presented an incredible opportunity. And hopefully today we'll deep dive into some of those pockets. But yeah, it's the world will never be the same again, especially on the talent side.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have anything to contribute to that, Toby?
Not a lot. No, I mean, the one thing is, it's funny that Natalia said the Great Resignation, and that's what it's been being dubbed now. But I actually
and just to stop, just to tickle your brain before you start. And I'm thinking of this being as big as Industrial Revolution, just right up there. I just want to.
And I think it is, but I think it deserves a different name, because when you hear the Great Resignation, it almost makes it sound like it's a much more selfish movement. And I think some of it has been. People are starting to realize they can work in a better atmosphere, and don't have to be in a toxic workplace, or don't have to be, dealing with bad commutes or anything like that. But so the name I've actually seen being thrown around a little bit now that I actually like a lot better is the Great Reset. And
I love that.
Yeah, and I like that a lot more, because I think that's exactly to your point, Natalia, is we're seeing, like the great, Industrial Revolution, we're seeing the Great Reset of now there are technologies, there are ways to be able to do this kind of stuff, and you're not so restricted now. So you're able to, in the past, I mean, you're only looking at what's in your market. You're only looking at the talent in your market. You're not really looking outside. Now we can look at talent globally. So you actually are getting the best of the talent. And with all the technology around, I mean, one of the great things we do at StarMark is we actually got ahead of the curve. And at the very beginning of the pandemic, our senior leadership bought every employee Oculus 2, the VR headsets, the Oculus Quest 2s. And we actually do meetings in virtual reality. And it's a nice way that we have people in Boise, we have people in Tampa, we have people in New York, people in Chicago, and we're all in the same room. You still get the same kind of feel as being in a meeting room, but we can actually do what we want to do when we want to do it. And it's actually one of the things we've done is we're not hybrid anymore. Even we're doing what we call orbits, which we work in 2-week sprints for project planning and whatnot. And we actually orbit around the projects themselves and who do we need to collaborate with? When do we need to collaborate with them and how? Is it something we can do virtually? Do we all need to get into our office space that we have now set up more like a co-work space and collaborate in person? So I think you're seeing a lot of those shifts happening now, and it's because of the technology and the ability to kind of be that, open-minded and be that kind of, I can do anything anywhere. So we're finally really starting to see the full potential of people and companies. So it's exciting.
I love that. So, long story short, there is an opportunity, right? That's and I wanted 100%. To get so I wanted to get into some juicy stuff, like for instance, technical. For one, there's requirements. For instance, if one needs to be prepared for to take on some freelance work or any kind of work. I wouldn't say hired in a company because that requires immigration and visa. So that's out of our wheelhouse here. We're talking about freelance contract work, right? So aside from the language, English, obviously, give me what could you say? There was 3 or 5 things that are very basic that that will make somebody stand out. I mean, obviously there's portfolio, but there's I'm curious to understand the language barriers, how to translate it, from copywriters and art directors, how is it different, and how to stand out in this crowd of freelancers.
That's a really great question, Grazie, and I know a lot of people are going to benefit from that tonight. I think that the number one thing that I would say helps you stand out is perseverance, because it's a sea of opportunity, and wherever there's opportunity, obviously there will be communities that are just coming to the front, especially people that have a great portfolio already, that are already plugged into a community, that have been doing the freelance work for a while, that know where those pockets of opportunity are. But now there's more exposure to that. You have platforms like SheWorks, but platforms also like freelancer.com and TopTal. These are, again, there's so much to go around that I'm not even hesitant to share them with you because there's so much to go around. But just as there is so much to go around, there's also a lot of saturation. So I would say perseverance is basically what will set you aside, because it's I think what allowed a lot of people to survive the pandemic as well. It's knowing when to pivot and knowing if you're trying to go into one channel and it's not working, knowing where and how quickly to shift to the next one. And by channel, I mean, is this community or this meetup not giving you the results you wanted in terms of generating opportunities for you? Okay, what's next? What else do you have? So I think diversifying how much exposure you have into the world, how much connections you have, how many communities you're a part of, I think that's really important. Which brings me to the second point, is access. It's not just perseverance. You can persevere, but if you're not persevering within the right groups or the right channels, guess what? You might be wasting your time. So it's important to really take the time before you start approaching any market right now or any opportunity, is to understand what groups to do that within and who to do it with. If there are any recruiters in your area that have the access to global opportunities or even opportunities in your current local market that are remote, I would start there if you are not an expert in remote work just yet, just to get a feel for it. But also it's important to have someone coach you through all of these things. So having access to that will not only allow you to stand out because you're thinking how do I position myself strategically in these markets, but you also have intel. And I think that's really important. These communities communities that I keep mentioning, organizations that are either women focused or focused on digital designers or tech, women in tech, or, you know, LGBTQ in tech, whatever you are best represented as, I definitely suggest joining a community. In terms of technical skill sets, and maybe Toby can add to this, is really, and I'll just touch on the highlights that I've seen, but Grazie mentioned that, you know, a great portfolio is awesome, but also showing how relevant that is for whatever market or client you're looking to target. And I think I've seen a lot of people, and the people that catch my attention the most, because I do some of the internal recruiting for our team, are people that have the ability to create a very quick proof of concept for me. And a lot of people are hesitant because creatives are like, well, you're going to pay me for my ideas. And it's like, what I've seen is people that can create for example, Natalia, I looked on the website and SheWorks could use a rebranding, for example. I created these ideas for you. What do you think? It's like, whoa, this person is, first of all, brave enough to like do this, but secondly, so confident that their work is going to be bought wherever it goes because it's, you know, relevant. So I think that confidence to be and know how to prepare something that is very highly relevant for the client you're targeting is very important right now, because a lot of people think that my portfolio as is enough. And sometimes it might be like, if you're an automotive industry expert and you've done UI UX for, you know, a bunch of car brands, awesome. And you're applying to BMW, great. That's highly relevant. But you have a lot of people coming from the agency world that have tackled so many different brands and so many different industries that if, for example, I'm a tech startup and I'm focusing on women empowerment, and you're coming from something that's completely irrelevant, I want to see why I should hire you. So I think that if you can answer that question on the front end through a small project or something that you create, or even a video showing how that experience is relevant. I think relevance is just so key right now to captivating a hiring manager's attention. And we can go on and on, but I would say those are my highest recommendations. So access, understanding the relevance of your work, having the confidence and perseverance to really understand how to position yourself and not give up when you hear a couple of no's, because you will hear that, and that's totally okay. It's just pointing you in a different direction.
I love that. Thank you for that, Natalia. And on that same note, so we're speaking, our audience here is mostly international, is mostly in Brazil. And my question, maybe Toby can answer next, is if you have similar portfolios from like a US candidate, an American candidate lives here, and a Brazilian candidate, both remote, how do you evaluate? What is the deciding factor, you think, if they have similar portfolios, experiences, and you know, what is something that you think it's gonna make it or break it?
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of what Natalia just said. It's so if I'm looking at all things equal, as far as the quality of work itself, how did it get to me? How much time does it look they put into it? Where did it come from? Did it come from a reputable, you know, recruiting agency, or did it come from somebody that I know and trust, and I know they're going to send me good quality people? So making sure you're part of that good you know, community and have those connections. So it's all of those kind of tangibles that you go, okay, the work's the same. Who are they? Where are they from? What else have they done? And I think if they're already looking at and receiving international, you know, freelancers and portfolios, dive into that. Don't try to make yourself look just like every other, you know, if you're applying in the US market, don't look like every other US portfolio. You know, really dig into your culture, really dig into your passions. Because if they're accepting people from that area, you know, outside of the US, and they're accepting that kind of diversity, they're looking for that diversity. So don't make yourself look like the rest, make yourself stand out, because that's an avenue that they're trying to probably pursue. And now you'd be the expert in that area because you know, you have the background, you have the lifestyle, you have the culture knowledge. So it's not making yourself look like everybody else, it's trying to find ways to stand out. And that was to what I was going to say with what Natalia was speaking on. She hit it dead on with her three things. And the only thing I'd add to it is stand out. You know, think outside the box, be creative. I mean, if you're a creative person, be creative. How are you delivering it? How are they going to access it? And if it's outside the box creative, it's you, it's what you're passionate about. and you're persistent and brave, then it's going to work out 9 times out of 10. Yes, you'll get no's, but just keep being persistent and do your research ahead of time. Like, look at a company. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Don't restrict yourself to one company or one type of job. If you're creative and you're a graphic designer, look at all the different graphic design area type of works, and then go with agencies, go with, brands, and see, are they in-house? Are they out of house? Are they working with agencies? And then are they, working, to Natalia's earlier point, are they working remotely? If they have a lot of employees on LinkedIn, LinkedIn's easy to use, and you can go look at the people that work for the company. Are there a lot of people spread out, or are they all kind of from the same area because they're all at the headquarters and working in the office? That's how you'll know if they're even open-minded to, accepting freelancers and people that are more remote. So do your research, be creative, stand out, and really own who you are and where you're from.
And I love that. I love what Natalia said is like gold, and what you said just kind of was cherry on the top of the cake, because I think for those who are in Brazil, and I don't know how this is translated in the world scenario, but here in the United States, there's a big EDI movement. It's called diversity, inclusion, and equity, meaning that companies are some companies do this as their own core value, but those that don't do it are being called out. And we want diverse boards, we want diverse creative, not only diverse interns, we want diverse management and leadership. So there's a big movement, and companies are starting to people are starting to notice the companies that aren't joining the movement, are behind. So like Toby said, if you're from Brazil, you have that, do your samba. Basically, show that you have that one thing, that difference, that whatever it is that you have that is from this culture, that it is going to add to the the gringos.
It's a great point, Grazie and Toby. I'm so happy you brought it up. Prior to starting the conversation here, I was telling Toby and Grazie how I live in Portland now. They're like, "Oh, how is it? We'd love to visit." And I was like, "I love this place because everyone is so welcome to be who they are. Like, as unique as you can be, it'll be celebrated even more. It's like the weirder you are, the more we want to see it, type of thing." And I think, and I'm using this as an example because I think the world, and especially areas that are highly creative, like ad agencies, are really understanding the power of diversity. And a lot of people think, well, diversity is just more women or just people from a specific ethnic group, but diversity is everyone. I mean, think everything that is just, and a good way to say it is underrepresented, people that typically don't get the spotlight because, let's just say they just don't get the spotlight. And I think that companies in the particular case of this conversation, because we're speaking to people from Brazil, I'm Colombian, by the way. So for me, I know that so much of my success is attributed to the fact that I tap into my Colombian spiciness sometimes to make some stuff happen, or to break the ice, or close a deal, or entice, a client to really give me a chance. I mean, there's so much in my professionalism that is tied to my roots. I'm not a designer anymore, but I represent designers. So, the creativity that I put into the work that is given to the rest of the world is very much rooted in my culture. And I know one thing about Brazilians, that you guys are so just proud to be who you are and have such a beautiful, like, artistic way of not only speaking, but expressing yourself. And some of the most incredible designers that I've seen, both on the technology side, so front-end designers, UI, UX, graphic designers, they bring that passion into the work. So I think it's a really great moment to highlight, to not hide that. And Toby said it, just like really bring it into the forefront to stand out, because companies are now not just in charge of hitting metrics for DEI, they're in charge of making sure that they walk the talk, like you said, Grazie, because right now they're getting called out if they're not doing that. There's a huge sense of accountability for that diversity. But really, when you look at the culture and what it needs within a company, diversity actually allows companies to make better products. It allows them to offer more relevant services to their target markets. It also impacts their bottom line. So a lot of companies are now thinking, okay, yes, it's the right thing to do, but also, like, from a business perspective, it actually makes companies' revenue go up. So it's like, you have no excuse, like, if you don't have any DEI initiatives right now, it's because you either are not aware of the impact choose not to do it, which is that's where a lot of people are getting called out. But also you just maybe have not had a taste of it. So I think it's like anyone that travels to Brazil or to Colombia, to anywhere in the world that has a taste of a culture that's so rich is immediately hooked. And I think that companies that are really giving this a fair shot are really enjoying that. So yes, I second that. I echo it. Definitely let your culture shine through, because that sometimes is what companies are really looking for more than anything, is just that passion and that cultural difference to come through.
And the one last point on that, sorry, Grazie, is two things to back it up with. You want to talk about backing it up with data and whatnot. I remember reading an article after the 2020 census came out that I think all of the minority groups in America are now at, I think, 47 or 48% of the general population, and they expect by 2030 census that it's going to flip, and now what is the majority, which is the white European Anglo-Saxon community, is going to then become the minority of, not in a compared to other minorities, but they will now be under 50%, and all of the minority groups together are going to be larger. And so I think that kind of shock to the system for a lot of executive teams, and seeing the pandemic hit and seeing all of the DE&I push and everybody wanting causes to be kind of a main push for revenue and profit streams to be going to certain causes and whatnot, you're getting a lot more of that kind of understanding. And so the companies companies in America are now more than ever trying to push to be more global. You've got more large brands that you're seeing in other countries. So, and then seeing them when they come back here. So all of that being said, to the point that you don't want to again, dig into the individuality, dig into who you are, dig into that, what you know as yourself and what you know as your culture, because that's what they're going to need in order to be profitable, and then sell them that and sell them why they need that. And spit those facts back at them. Look, I am the people that you're marketing to. So my ideas is what's going to sell your stuff better. And so just dig into that and be confident, brave, like Natalia said, and really dig into it is my suggestion there.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said earlier, Toby, about the research. So maybe there's a company here that wants to expand their market in Brazil. So they might be looking for that brain, the creative brain. Totally. So doing research, I think, is just send an email. Here's the link to my portfolio. Sometimes is probably not enough. You got to dig in and get dirty and do your research and see what's who's doing what, and following trend watching and all those market reports and so forth.
To Grazie's point, I want to add something really quick. Sorry, Grazie. That there's, the pandemic put everyone at home, right? And so what happened? A lot more information and exposure to trends and insights and data now came available, because it's like, how else are you going to market to folks, right? That being said, to your point, Grazie, is it's really easy to see what a company's target audience is, and just, if you want a quick tip on how to position yourself very powerfully being from Brazil, is look at companies that target to Brazilians in the United States, or Brazilian, or as a whole, or Brazilians around the world. And just giving you an example, or people that predominantly have Portuguese speaking employees, like something that is just such a foot in the door that they can't say no when they see your profile, right? And one of the things that I fine-tuned in my career as a recruiter is how to just hook people on the first 20 seconds, whether it's a great resume, whether it's a great portfolio. And that is an excellent tip, Grazie, is do your research, because nowadays it's almost like sending just a link and assuming you're going to get chosen because you have pretty designs is not enough. It's your responsibility to do the research. So it's honestly going to benefit you in the long run, because it's with that research, with that data, with insights, you'll be able to be like, actually, I should put this portfolio piece here, or I should start with maybe this, or I should, even write a nice little paragraph or opener that is so relevant and shows that I took the time to get to know this company. As a recruiter, I'm telling you, that works wonders. So anyway, just wanted to add to that, but I think research is very, very key.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, no, it's all. So I have a question, but before we get to someone's question, I have one other thing that I wanted to cover, because you said, and we mentioned like briefly, like, oh, sending a link and this and that. Maybe Natalia can answer this, and possibly Toby, but I think Natalia, with a recruiting background, what is the best approach technically? Are we doing cover letters anymore? Is it email? Is it LinkedIn? Is it a DM? Sliding to someone DMs? Tell me all about
I
it.
always believed in surrounding, well, when I was teaching my account executives on how to get the attention of a hiring manager, because again, I perfected that art for the better part of 7 years. We always talked about surrounding the client. So basically coming in from all angles. And a lot of people that are not salespeople might think, wow, that's too intense. I don't want to be a creep. I don't want to be too much. But in this day and age, it's like good advertising. It finds you wherever you are. So at the time that you're faced with making a decision, it's going to be top of mind, right? So I think that in the creative industry, cover letters, it's too much reading, right? So whether you're sending this to a hiring manager that's extra busy or sending it to a creative recruiter that has 1,000 other resumes to look at, I think that being creatives, it's almost like, just the opener to this conversation. It's the creativity behind creativity. You are a creative individual. So position yourself as that product that you're trying to brand or sell or position, and really get creative about it. Some ways to do that. I mean, a lot of people tend to slide into DMs in LinkedIn and send a quick like, hey, how are you? I just added this piece that I think you would really enjoy to my portfolio, or I just won this award. So anything that has a little bit of weight, feel free and confident to connect with whoever the hiring manager is within that company. Easily resolved if you're the creative director from XYZ or the art director from XYZ. These guys are online all the time. In LinkedIn, they're having chats literally pop up in front of them. So it's like sending them a text message with something, but make sure that whatever you DM is very powerful. Hey, I just won an Addy award on this. Hey, I just won this award, whatever you are, whatever kind of creative. If you want a massive award or even an award at all, just a lot of creatives are very curious by nature, but when you say award, they're always just by curiosity going to want to see what that award is, because it's like, well, I just won an award too, and I want to see, it's like, it's healthy competition, but tap into the curiosity that is so ingrained in us because we are very curious creatures by nature. So if you're going to DM something that is heavy, that is like quick and has a link, right? If you were mentioned in an article, if you were mentioned as if your work is on a billboard, I don't care. Something that is like, oh, that's dope, right? In terms of your links and resume. So I think it's important who your target audience is here. And that's where you have to get a little bit creative. So if you're targeting a hiring manager, it's really, they're going to want to see awesome stuff like words and stuff like that. If you don't have anything like that, but you feel like you have a very powerful portfolio, I would try to find some connection to who they are as a person, what their company is doing that is relevant to you. And I would definitely feel free to DM a link to your portfolio, maybe have this sent over to HR in the same department, and maybe to like an art director if you're targeting a creative director. So think of like all the people that are involved in this team that talk to each other, right? So again, that's where like the surrounding part comes from. So if you're going to send something, I don't think personally a cover letter or a lengthy resume would do it. If you're creative, people want to see your work. And if you have something that really is going to speak to these people, send that, right? And if you want to send your portfolio, put whatever strongest piece first, the one that is going to be most eye-catching, most powerful, the one that's going to be the closest thing to like really like summing up your narrative and your story as a creative. One time when I was still designing, one of my teachers in art school was like, less is more. And I've seen a lot of portfolios that have so much information, and some of the best portfolios, like look at creative director portfolios out there, or art director portfolios out there. They tell you a story with the pieces that are on there. And Toby, I would love to hear you add to this, because you're probably on your team, looking at creatives to hire, and Grazie, I know for yourself as a lead creative, you've always looked at portfolios as well, but less is more there. Choose your best pieces that you feel most proud of. And I would say if you have to have a section about like strategy and brainstorming and what you did and what this looked like in the long run, like fine, include it, but keep it simple. Keep it simple, because the attention span of the people you're targeting, creative directors, art directors, any kind of hiring manager, HR people, recruiters, they have the attention span of a goldfish. And I don't knock that. They're very, very busy people. So you have to understand how they think. But it's very similar to how people who are buying a product or responding to an ad think. So consider that you have that relevant experience to speak to that kind of audience already with short attention spans. So if you're creative, you have no excuse. Be creative about being creative. So that's just my 2 cents.
Got it. Yeah, I got it. So we would say like actually a PDF resume, a cover letter is thing of the past. You would say
Not a thing of the
just like a
past.
line.
It's
Yeah,
good
but like
backup.
a line. It's the backup. Okay.
It's
You
a good
have it.
backup because the people that are going to be excited about your work are going to then take the time to read your story in a resume format. Does that make sense?
Yes. So you're saying that have that PDF, have that little
100%. Yes.
Okay,
Definitely
so
have a
the cover
resume.
letter and have it just
Yeah.
hey, but the
Most people
first
ask for cover letters, at least not in my, I mean, maybe for a role that's a little different than creative. The biggest thing you can have, like your strongest suit here, your secret weapon is your portfolio. That's the first thing that anyone is going to want to look at, right? And even when you send a resume, make sure that your portfolio link is very readily active, because they're going to go portfolio first, then back to your resume to then check on, okay, I like your work. Now I want to see how dedicated you are. How long did you stay in that company? Or if you were jumping around, I want to see the story behind it. Were there any gaps? Like, anyone that is really interested in you is going to take the time to read your resume. So your resume should be great. PDFs are awesome. I would say if you are able to, and I know this is hard for some creatives, but to transfer that PDF into either a Word document or something that's way more universal, because sometimes I had this happen a lot at Robert Half. Like, some of the PDFs would open up and look like really weird formatting if I didn't have that typeface on or whatever the case. Try to be creative in a simplistic way when you're designing your resume, so that it's going to show up on the recruiter or hiring manager's screen the way you intended it to. Because sometimes I saw these beautiful resumes that showed up very differently. So that's just a very big tip for resumes. Make sure that you've tested it on a couple of other computers to make sure that it's representing you properly. That's why portfolios online are actually the best way. And I know sometimes in a portfolio site, you can include a resume exactly how you want it to look. So very good tip there.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So for those who don't know, I don't know how common this is in Brazil. Cover letter is a letter that you send to the hiring manager, to creative director, whoever. Say, dear hiring manager, I've been working in this industry for so many years, and I love your company because blah blah blah. And it's just like a personal note, like a paragraph, a short paragraph, a personal note, and thank you for the time. So if you have any questions with that, just Google cover letter templates, and you'll see some of those examples, because I won't go into details of that. So cover letter, definitely. Resume, definitely. Link to portfolio, possibly link to LinkedIn. So I think there are like the 4 things that you want to make sure you have in a little package somewhere, like in a nice package to send to potential contractors, not contractors, but hiring firms. Yeah, employers.
One thing I'll add is make sure that they all are cohesive. So like your LinkedIn profile, make sure that your resume matches that. Make sure that your portfolio matches that. At the end of the day, you're telling a story about yourself. And in the creative space, it's a very visual story about yourself, but you definitely want to back it up with the right stuff. But yeah, you said it perfectly, Grazie, having a package of this. It's like your press kit, right? Pretend you're an artist. It's like, this is your press kit. It has to be solid. And I would even, if you have fellow creatives or even fellow leaders in the creative industry, I would definitely share it with them and make sure that that the message you want to send about yourself is easily understood. I think it's very wise to do that.
Yeah, cohesive in like timeline, and also visually too. It's just like you want to. And I have the question. I'm gonna ask you the question that we got here on the chat, but I'm gonna make it a 2-part question. It's about experience, and it's about being specialized in one thing over being like a jack of all trades. So what are companies looking for as far as like experience, like a tenure, and as well as like breadth of scope of work. Like, okay, so auto industry, or like, you see what I'm saying? Like, are we looking for, like, is the marketing looking for people who are specialized in that one thing, or they want to see somebody who like can broaden their spectrum of work?
That's a great question. Go ahead, Toby. I would love to hear your insights on this because you're like entrenched in the ad space.
And so I think the answer is both. And it highly depends and goes back, sounding like a broken record, to do your research and figure out where you're applying to, what kind of stuff are they doing, and what kind of people do they have. And you can go to LinkedIn, see the people, and see what their people's backgrounds are. So like, I know there are definitely some companies, especially if you're going more agency side, that prefer the jack of all trades. That's what I've always been, and that's what's gotten me hired at all the different places. Is I have a breadth of knowledge. I know a little about a lot, and it's enough to at least get this project started and lead people and get people where they need to go, and then let the specialists that specialize in a certain area go from there. So agencies kind of need both. It depends on the role you're applying for, and it depends on the agency and the type of work. If there is one that's better than the other, I would say I am starting to see a bigger push into specialists and having people that are specialized in a specific field, in a specific type of industry, in a specific type of design, especially now that we are going to a more remote work area and you have the ability to choose from a bunch of different options. You don't need to just go with the best in your area or somebody that knows a lot of, a little about a lot. You can find the best, graphic designer in the car industry, even no matter where they are. So you want to be, or the best, graphic designer in the restaurant business or the hospitality. So I am starting to see a push along with the remote work, push, that you are seeing people that are looking for people that are experts in their area. So do your research, see which one it works out for more. The one thing I would say too is like level of your job. If you're going to be more management and senior management, then that's when they want to be able to have the bigger, breadth of knowledge. And so you can manage the expert for the car industry, the expert for the food industry, the expert for the hospitality industry. But so it all depends on where you're trying to get in, and what level you're applying for, in my opinion. But I think if you had to choose one over the other, it's definitely be an expert at one thing. And then if you can, know a bunch of other stuff too, but be an expert in that one thing at least, and know it really, really well.
That's really good stuff. And I'm taking some notes here because you touched on so many things that were like, aha moments. One thing I totally agree with you. It's when I was at Robert Half, starting my career there, 2014, 2015, I saw the rise of the hybrids. Every client was like, I want a graphic designer who can code. And it's like, you started seeing that go into like, okay, that's a front-end developer. And, and how does that relate to the team? And then you started seeing back-end developers that started to design. And it's just like, and so I think that the creative industry, and again, I speak only in the United States, specifically Florida, started going into like, I want a jack of all trades. And then they started realizing that, and I was actually a jack of all trades. So I'll tell you this from a personal perspective. What happens is you become a jack of all trade, master or expert of none, because you can't be everything at all times, especially in creative. You'll burn out very quickly. That's why there are teams. So I have noticed since like 2015, 2016, the transition into specialists. And I started noticing that with the rise of, specifically in the United States, of UI, UX, product. Now it's called product design. You'll see that the rise of customer experience, and then all of these things that just start, like the ramifications of all of these things. And it's because there is a huge need for expertise within these different fields. So now it's almost like that, but we had to have hybrids to make people realize, like, I can't have one person doing these two jobs because it's not going to get done properly. And I think that now, because visibility, access, with all these project management platforms, you can see how people think, and now that we're more remote, we need to really have more transparency in process. People are realizing that you have to have experts to fully execute in the right way. So I think that another thing that backs this up is that education especially education within creative and technology skills education is becoming way more accessible. I mean, you have platforms like Platzi and Coursera that are just teaching you these amazing product management or product design skills. And I'm focusing on that specific skill set because it's the one I've seen trending the most. But now skill sets are actually and certifications like Facebook technology certifications, AWS certifications, Google certifications are now weighing more than an actual degree. And the fact that there is more accessibility to education means it's like now we want more experts because we're making, all these companies are making these skills accessible, even the companies themselves, Google, Facebook. We work with Facebook as one of their global exclusive partners in training women specifically on how to get certified for Facebook technologies. Like the companies themselves are investing their own trainers and employees in participating in these programs because they feel so compelled. And universities don't offer this anymore. And there's another revolution going on, and it's called the soft skills revolution, where people are realizing that soft skills are a fantastic way of dictating how to hire and how to place people within teams. So, I think there's definitely a push for expertise. There's definitely a push to not just look at what skills you have, but also who are you as a person? And with the remote revolution that we're seeing too, the digital industry revolution that we're seeing, is that managers are interviewing more virtually now. So, it's not just body language anymore. It's like, I need to really do a deep dive on what your personality is like. How do you fit into my team? So there's so many different assessments now to assess culture and how well of a fit you are, not just on your skill set, but as a person, because that really weighs right now. And so I echo Toby's sentiment on expertise. I think it's important now more than ever to pat yourself on the back if you're a jack of all trades. And I think that will come in handy if you ever want to go into management, because it shows that you've had exposure to different departments and you can work within cross-functional teams. That's a superpower to have, especially if you love managing people and want to grow within an organization. It is great to have know a little bit of everything, just enough to know to walk the talk and talk shop. But to really set yourself apart, especially nowadays, it's really important to say, I'm an expert at this. And I also think from a psychological perspective, if you walk into an interview or a room where you are interviewing for the thing that you are an expert at, confidence levels up here. And I think confidence is half the battle, right? Because it's all about how you deliver it and how you tackle problems and how knowing where to go, because it's not just getting the job. It's actually like, okay, now you have the job. What are you going to do? And if you're an expert at something, it's very quick to position yourself as a valuable asset that can grow within the company. So if that's your mission, I definitely think it's something that should shine within all of this whole package that we talked about. It should shine through. And one thing that I recommend in how you position yourself as an expert is give yourself a title. So right under your resume, if you get my resume, it says Talent Acquisition Leader, Future of Work Advocate, because I want, no matter what you read on my resume, I want that the essence of what you see me as and the professional that I am, I want it to be tied to talent acquisition and future of work. And then whoever really is enticed to read about it will obviously look at it. But give yourself a title, make yourself that expert, and obviously be ready to back it up, because that's usually the part where people fail. People say, well, I'm a UI UX designer. Okay, how much experience do you have? Well, I just graduated from school. That's perfectly fine, but you may not be an expert yet. Call yourself a specialist, or call yourself give yourself a creative title that maybe is a little bit looser. But if you're going to call yourself an expert or leader or guru or whatever you want to say, be sure you can back it up during your interview and on the job. Because that's the stuff that really sets you apart. So it's definitely worth investing in it, for sure.
I love that.
Yeah. The one thing to build on that too, Natalia, is I love the idea of own that you're the expert, but I think the way you can navigate both is be the expert, but understand how your knowledge in this thing might be able to translate to something else. So it's being able to know. I know Natalia would always say that whenever I was looking for jobs or talking to her about recruiting, is know how your skills translate to a different position or to a different work method or work atmosphere. And then I think the one thing that I forgot to hit on earlier that I think is huge right now is you're seeing a lot of companies and agencies are putting a huge emphasis on their audience, their target audience, who they are. So the other thing I think might give you an edge on people is doing the research, like we said before, to know what that is. And then how does the work that you're an expert in relate to that audience? Yes. How can you definitely speak to that audience well because you're an expert in this? So if you're an expert at doing graphic design in the car industry, but their audience is affluent, wealthy, elderly people, older age people, how does your work translate well to them? Or if they're looking for the young social media influencer crowd, how does your work translate well to them? So it's understanding that audience and how your expertise speaks to them. And I think that would be something that, to Natalia's earlier point, a lot earlier, makes you stand out among people when you have that confidence and you go, I know how I can get my work paired with your product to the people you want to get it to. So I think that's important.
It's really good.
That is good. That's such good advice, you guys. It breaks my heart that we're gonna start to wrap it up because it's so good. They have another talk happening in a couple of minutes, but I just want to say and make clear that we were talking about freelance contracting work. I don't think that means that a company cannot hire a person from a different country. I think they can. This is where this conversation is going in a contract basis. I know there's going to be some legal stuff and some financial stuff that needs to be taken care of, but that doesn't mean it's impossible. It is possible.
Totally possible. I want to jump in. I want to jump into that because I know we're running late on time, or not. Yeah. We're close. It is not impossible. Companies right now that are smart are partnering with people like SheWorks, not just us, but people like us, where we are an intermediary between these what we call international consultants, where we literally just remove the barriers. Like if Toby wanted an entire team of Brazilian UI UX designers or copywriters, he could tap me on the shoulder tomorrow and say, Natalia, hey, all those people that were in this call today, I need you to centralize them on your platform, connect them with me, and they can start working on Monday. So don't let people tell you it's impossible. It's just they're not the right fit for you. And on top of that, if you did want to be treated more as an employee, we want to make sure that you understand that there are companies out there that even if they can't sponsor you, there's something called PEO services or employer of record services. There are a ton of people popping up left and right that are basically acting as kind of like an intermediary to offering benefits and offering the full-time employee experience for people abroad without having to go through the headaches of a visa. Companies like Globalization Partners, Deal, we partner with them and help companies. I'll give you an example, like Millicom, who is located in, it's mainly based out of Bolivia. For us, they're like, we want people from Argentina. We want people from this. We want to treat this person as a full-time employee. So we've helped them say, okay, we'll treat this person as a freelancer with our platform. We'll, outsource this to our partner as a full-time employee. So like the world is really doing everything possible to make this geography boundary disappear. So I would say if you guys are within a design field, you're okay to speak English or at least try to tackle the U.S. market. Please let me know. Look me up on LinkedIn. If you're a developer, especially a developer that has some experience that is ready for work, I really need you because I have so many clients that are just begging me for people like you. So I think it's a great opportunity to connect, but I'll stop here so that we can add more insights to that, but it's 100% possible.
Yeah, follow Natalia. You guys who are here, follow. She's always posting some really, really good stuff, especially on LinkedIn. And I'm going to say goodbye and I'm going to leave Toby. First of all, I want to thank you guys for your time. This is so precious. I'm sure people are like taking notes like crazy right now. They're going to watch the recording and take notes because this is gold. This is such So I'm going to say goodbye and thank you, Natalia. And I'm going to, since Toby hasn't spoken, I'm going to leave him with the last couple of words and we're going to end this talk. Thank you guys so much. Thanks for everyone for watching.
I don't have anything to add other than thank you for the time and definitely go follow Natalia, connect with her. She
all
is
of us.
Yes, but you are I mean, you're way more of a rock star, way smarter and way cooler than I am. So if you want to know the ins and outs, Natalia is the one. I mean, follow me too if you want to, but Natalia is definitely going to be the one who's going to get you the better information. So she's a rock star.
Thank you.
Make her your friend because you want rock stars as friends.
I got you guys. Seriously,
All
look
right.
me up. We'll be connected. Grazie to Grazie and Toby and everyone that made this possible. And you guys, good luck. Don't give up. Be persistent. You got this. The world needs you. Seriously. Okay. Don't forget that. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right,
Love
guys.
this. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a good night. Bye.
Bye.